Okay, this video is about my books. First of all, here is Aristotle. My three biggest mentors and influences are Aristotle, who in his time of ancient Greece, in the 300s BC, he summarized the known useful knowledge of biology, philosophy, literature, public speaking, rhetorics, etc. Also, Thomas Aquinas had a big influence on me, the idea of unifying faith and reason. They go together. And as a matter of fact, you cannot have good faith without good science. It just doesn't work. We've talked about that in other lectures, and there's Aquinas before Christ saying, I tried. I hope I did okay. And Christ said, yeah, you did good. Okay, here is Isaac Newton. And what I love about Isaac Newton was he didn't have any money. He didn't have any big research team. He didn't have great resources. He just sat down and read everything he could get his hands on and studied everything he could get his hands on, and he made the greatest discoveries of all time in science. And the point I'm getting at here is that the main thing a smart person needs is just time to read and think. Okay, so I wish I had more time to read and think, but it had tremendous influence on me that I studied the life of Isaac Newton. By the way, he spent more time studying the Bible than he did math and physics, that he could just sit down and read and think, and he could figure out the most important, most complex questions. Okay, so that really shaped my thinking a lot. Now here is the book Holy Grail of Wisdom Quotes, which is basically a summary of all the great quotes from the great writers, from really going from the ancient Greeks, the Romans, the Renaissance, Romantics, and Recents, and it also includes quotes from the Bible. Then when I first started out writing, my friends who wrote more than I did as part of their job, they're a bunch of lawyers, they were making fun of me, so I decided to really learn how to write as best I could. And I read everything I could get my hands on for writing, and I summarized it in this book, Rhyme, Rhetoric, and Logic. It includes how to, public speaking, rhetoric, poetry, literature, and goes into great detail on all those topics. It's like a PhD in writing. Here's the book that's most popular with people in the regular world. Okay, in the academic world, a lot of the people who watch my videos are interested in, complex science of the brain and stuff, but regular people, they love this book. They'll grab it out of each other's hands. It's like the most beautiful art book ever made, best Christian art. And the reason is I just took all the masterpieces. If you go to the college art professors, they're all a bunch of wimps. They all, put a bunch of nonsense in their old cave paintings, broken statues, and then a bunch of fat fertility goddesses, stuff no one really cares about. And then in the end, they talk too much all through the book, and in the end, they put a bunch of modern art and pretend it's real, a bunch of nonsense. Anyways, I just collected the greatest masterpieces of all time, primarily paintings, but also sculpture, and then Christian music and literature and movies and related topics, architecture, and just summarize them all in chronological order. And mostly it's pictures. It's page after page after page after pictures. It's a big book. Okay, next set of books was Poor Man's Guide, A Way to Fight Cancer. I've had internal medicine docs tell me this is their favorite book of mine. They say that because it's relatively short. It's only about, something like 170 pages, and it gets right to the point real quick. The coaches on the cover are my Stanford wrestling coaches. That's Dave Schultz and Mark Schultz. They're both NCAA world and Olympic champions. I learned more from them than any Stanford professor, how to really get great at something. Poor Man's Way to Prevent Dementia, where I summarize, and How to Raise IQ, I sort of summarize a lot of little tricks about making yourself smarter and how to prevent dementia, and I go through my theory, the supply and demand theory of neurodegeneration, etc. Then the next book, that's almost like in a series with those earlier two, is Medical Reformation and Vegan Renaissance Bible. If you only bought one book of mine that summarized medical knowledge, this would be the one. And the main reason I wrote this book was, I had some new ideas, but it was also because I had figured out how to effectively get all my illustrations into a big book. So this is sort of a big book. I forget how many pages it is, something like 700, something like that. And it'll cover everything you'd want to know about obesity, diabetes, hypertension, atherosclerosis, coronary artery disease, etc. So I've basically rewritten all the internal medicine fellowship subspecialty stuff that's relevant. Okay, anything that relates to nutrition, toxicology, epidemiology. Okay, I don't go into procedural topics of those subjects, but I go into all the other stuff in great detail. Okay, then this book right here was John McDougall, The Doctor Who Fought for You. Dr. McDougall was the greatest doctor who ever lived, and I wanted to become the greatest doctor who ever lived. So it was important to me to study all his work. So I read through like 6 of his books And I went through every video of his that I could from his YouTube channel, and then I went through all his newsletters, and I organized it and summarized it. So to help people find it, to help people learn it, I make videos about all of these topics, but it's magnificent. McDougall was awesome. He's an awesome genius. Okay, here is the top 50 books in health and nutrition for maximum health. And what this book was all about was, I've read many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books on nutrition and health, and I just wanted to put the top 50 in here. So like what I figure will happen is, a new person will come along in the future and they're going to want to try to really develop a deep understanding of nutrition, and this takes them right to the best books, so you can get info quick, because you never know with the internet. It's just good to have the books. It's good to have hard copy books. Okay, then my most recent book was Food, Mood, and IQ, 100 Ways to be Happier and Smarter. This is a big book. It's a 600-page book. And what had happened was I reviewed all the psychology and psychiatry, and basically conventional psychology and psychiatry are kind of a big joke. So I figured it was time to rewrite those textbooks. And there's like a whole parallel universe of perspectives and diagnoses and treatments that are not in the conventional books. So I put all that stuff in here, and then I explain the relationship between food and food toxins, environmental toxins, air pollution and stuff, and their relationship to food, mood, and IQ. And of course I go into great detail in this book about my supply and demand theory and neurodegeneration, all the other common important theories in neurodegeneration, Delatorre, Yamashima, Kellen Pretorius, to basically help people to protect their brains, because cognitive impairment is very common. I go through the Martin Pall theory, and basically I'm proud of this book. It's beautiful, it's elegant, it's fantastic. Everything I do is the best thing ever done in its genre. I wouldn't write the book if it wasn't the best thing ever done up to that point in its genre. So they're all the best in genre. Just a couple old books of mine. This is my medical school picture. I wrote the Medical Student's Guide to Top Board Score. Dean wrote this one. He wrote the foreword for that book. That book's a little bit, it's a little bit old now. And here I wrote, I was an imaging guided surgeon before I switched to primarily becoming a neuroradiologist. I still do general radiology, and I still do some imaging guided surgery, but, back in the day I was very interested in it, and I wrote the textbook of it, and the textbook was real popular. It was translated into Spanish there. After working all those years on trying to have good study skills for myself, I also spent a lot of time trying to teach my kids good study skills, and I've tutored quite a few students over the years as well, and I wrote this book, based on my increased experience at that point, called How to Raise IQ and Become a Genius. And there's a lot in this book about helping parents to optimize the cognitive development of their child. So it's a pretty extensive book with all the study skills plus all the developmental stuff as well. Here's just a couple fun books. Vegan Reformation. This was when I was first starting to learn how to put illustrations into a book. And a lot of people just love this book. This is sort of a cute little book. You could read this book in one day very easily. And it's all full of pictures and fun and jokes and a strong correlation, overlapping between religion and nutrition. But it's a lot of fun. People love that book. Okay, and then here's probably my second most popular book with my friends. The art book's the most popular, then the Vegan Reformation, then this book, A Tale of Two Toes in a Hot Tub, and it's really a parody of Jonathan Swift's book about a tub, and it's called How to Improve Blood Flow. The main focus of the book is how to improve blood flow, and it compares two patients that kind of go through the system and how they handle the different options for getting well. But this is the funniest one. I can tell you, I know female doctors, as soon as they see me, they start laughing. And they're laughing because of this book. There's funny stuff in here too about all kinds of things. It's really hilarious book. I've been told by guys it's the funniest medical book they ever read in their life, and perhaps the funniest book they ever read in their life. It's a funny book because all the funny stuff that happened all through the years, I put it into the book. Okay, Hot Topics in Nutrition with Clinical Correlation. This is a more serious book, and basically I'm ramping up the complexity. These are a trilogy. This book, they all look the same, the covers, and they're a trilogy. So Hot Topics just goes into more detail. Then this book is a pretty advanced book, Journey to Optimal Health. I actually think it's more eloquent. The writing is sort of more beautiful. I put a lot of time into making it flow and be funny. The only thing about it was this was still written before I knew how to illustrate effectively. So there's hardly any illustrations in the book. And that's why I think my newer books, like Medical Reformation, Food, Mood, and IQ, they're better overall summaries of nutrition because I got all the illustrations. And here's another book. This one is called How to Reduce the Risk of Cancer and Chronic Disease. This is probably my most comprehensive, detailed biochemistry-like book. I go into a lot of biochemistry in this book, including some biochemistry that's not in my other books, even my Medical Reformation book or my Food, Mood, and IQ book. The reason was, again, I didn't have the ability to put good illustrations into my books at the time I wrote this. It's probably about 3 years ago. But I did go into a lot of advanced pathophysiology, about things like neurodegenerative disorders, Parkinson's disease, and stuff like that. Here's a book I wrote many years ago, and that's actually my mom. She did the Spanish voice on Quick Medical Spanish. I studied languages a lot, and I really liked it. I just wish I had more time. I spend too much time working as a conventional clinical doctor. I wish I could spend more time writing books. And I've also written a bunch of others. A lot of these were kind of during my junior developmental phase. I've learned a lot more about writing books since then, but it's kind of a fun hobby for me. So anyways, I hope that was interesting to you. And again, the most popular book with people is Best Christian Art. That's the one that everybody likes,